Words of joy and hope. It is the first Sunday of Lent, year A. The readings from Matthew 4:1-11, and the commentary by Father Fernando Armelini. At that time, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. A good Sunday to all. The devil has always been represented as monstrous, horrible. But if the tempter is always presented that way, how do you explain that so many people follow him? No, the evil seduces because he's beautiful, attractive. Watch the devil in the statue located at the back, at the back of the pulpit of St. Paul Cathedral in Liège in Belgium. If it weren't for those bat wings, we would confuse him with an angel of paradise, or with the perfection of a beautiful woman, or with an Apollo. I think we all would like to resemble, to be happy to possess that beauty. This is the danger. And this is how the devil is presented: beautiful, fascinating, one who loves you, one that offers you joy and life, and suggests that you should do what you should do if you want to embody that beauty. But he cheats you. Today's gospel text helps us to be on our guard, because if you follow the advice of the evil one, you will ruin your life. He models you because his beauty is ephemeral. Actually, he's a failure. He leads to ruin to those who pay attention to him. Look at some details of that sculpture. He's tied up with a chain. He's prisoner of, and those who listen to him also become slaves, tied to the chains of their passions, of their vices, and tied to illusory projects. Notice that he does not have the crown in the head, but in the hand. It falls because his kingdom is not lasting. His triumphs are always misleading. Also, look at the scepter. It is broken, half in hand, and the other half on his feet. And there is also an apple with a bite, which comes to say, do as you please, be your own God. But the taste of sin is always bitter, and in the end, it leaves you disgusted. Let us try to identify him well. It is not a despicable devil that the Father of heaven has left free to do evil to his sons and daughters. No, if so, we would have asked him to chain him in the abysses and close this chasm with 7 doors and under 7 locks. Why does God not do it? This is the objection I made to the religious catechist as a child. She responded with great simplicity, saying that the Lord let him loose to do this because later the devil had to suffer a lot for all eternity. Naturally, this explanation did not satisfy me. God cannot chain him with 7 locks because the evil is part of ourselves. It is present in all of us. It is that deceitful voice that tells us, look how nice it is to be self-referential in your moral choices. Do what you want. Why worry to know what God thinks? God exists only for a minority that still lives in the Middle Ages. When you grow up, you make your own decisions and you don't need God. This is the evil one. The one who gives us these suggestions. This evil one is part of ourselves. It tells us that God is an impediment to the realization of our lives. It tells us science and technology are the ones to decide what needs to be done. Science and technology are the sources of reference. The rest are cheap beliefs. So, the Word of God is not received as a kind suggestion of a Father who wants us happy, but as a heavy, arbitrary, meaningless imposition. Devil, diabolos in Greek, comes from the verb diabalo, which means the one who makes us stumble. It prevents the love relationship between God and people. This is the force of evil that ruins the person. It is the force that it is later embodied in structures, in groups of people, in things. In the gospel, we have an incarnation of this evil in Peter, presented as an obstacle to Jesus to travel the path that will lead him to the donation of his life. Peter wants to take Jesus by another way. And notice that Peter presents himself as a friend of Jesus. He tells him, don't go to Jerusalem because you will end up badly. You have to triumph. You have to be great, powerful. The evil deceives because he seems to be on your side, who wants your good. And all humanity must consider this inner conflict as a force that takes them away from God. The Lord gives us His Spirit that fights against this negative force because the Spirit wants us to unite us with the Lord. It is what Paul says to the Galatians in chapter 5 of his letter. He says, the flesh has desires contrary to those of the Spirit has desires contrary to those of the flesh. And these two realities that oppose frontally, and flesh means the evil force. And about this we must be attentive. And Jesus, who is a man like us, was not exempted. He has also experienced this inner conflict. How to present on a page of catechesis this experience of temptation that both for Jesus and for us lasts a lifetime. The Christian communities from the first generations have synthesized this experience, which Jesus has also done, this conflict between the forces of good and the forces of evil. They synthesize it in 3 parables. Let us listen to the first. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was hungry. The tempter approached him and said, if you are the Son of God, command that these stones become loaves of bread. He said in reply, it is written, one does not live of bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. In the Bible, number 40 indicates a whole generation, a lifetime. And in this parable, it also indicates the experience of our entire existence in this world. What happens in this life? What do we do? How do we use our time, our gifts, our energies? What are the objectives we give to our days? What are we living for? We have a misleading first suggestion that we feel within us, and it is this. Think of the material things, which are only the ones that count. These are the ones that should interest you, like food, home, health, profession. Think only of these things and you will live well, you will feel fulfilled, you will be happy. That's the temptation. Certainly they are important things and indispensable things for life. But pay attention because the evil force, the evil compulsion leads you to think that this is only what counts in life, and only this. And he tells you, put aside everything else. You will feel fulfilled when you are well, when you can feed on everything you like and do what you like. The temptation. If you are a child of God, that is, if you want to be a God, use science and technology to get these material goods. To be happy, you don't need anything else. Your identity is that of the Superman. You will be a God if you produce these goods. So, the value, the success of a person in this context and according to this mentality, it is measured by what the person produces. And when the person does not produce anymore, he or she no longer means anything. They are marginalized, they don't count, they are not successful people. The bread of which this parable speaks about indicates the whole set of those goods that we need to live, and we cannot do without them. They are very important in our, and in the Bible, the verb to eat, ahal, appears 910 times, and many pages of the Bible have this verb. It seems that people were continuously eating. The person needs this that is necessary for life, and God wants people to be satisfied. God has prepared a banquet that, if well managed, will always have food enough. God gave everything you need for your biological life. But let's pay attention, because this evil force leads you to not to be content with what is necessary. What is necessary, bread, and pushes you to always accumulate more, as if to defeat death, to maintain life, it is enough to retain these material goods. And so, some end up accumulating and living in luxury and waste, while others live in misery and go hungry. Now we ask ourselves, is the biological life, that life that we have in common with plants and animals, is this enough to feel fully realized, fulfilled as a person? This is the answer that Jesus gives to this dangerous temptation, because if you follow it, you don't become fully human. And Jesus answers, it is written, one does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes forth from the mouth of God. It means you are not just biological life. You have received another life, which is what makes you really and fully a person. The biological life is still pre-human, and this divine life is fed with another bread, different from the material bread. It is the bread of the Word of God. If you do not stop and reflect in the light of this Word to seek the meaning of your life, you will not become fully human. As we need this bread to live, the temptation is to live for bread, that is, for money, for food, profession. These are good things, as long as they do not become an absolute. The gospel tells us that the person is bigger than things. If you lose your mind for material things, if you consider them as an absolute, you will remain disappointed, because they will not satisfy you, because you are made for the infinite, and all these material things will never be able to satisfy this need that you have for a life that goes beyond the biological life. You will realize that you went to a well to draw water, to a well that will dry one day, and your search for pleasure will dry up. Your professional successes will dry up. If you have propped up your whole life on this to have meaning, you will realize that all these wells dry out, and you will remain with your thirst for infinite joy that no material reality will be able to quench. We can fool ourselves in the way we relate to material reality which is below us, but when we consider them as an absolute. But we can also be wrong with the way we relate with who is above us, with God. And now we have the second parable. Then the devil took him to a holy city and made him stand on the parapet of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "Again it is written, You shall not put the Lord your God to the test. If you are the Son of God." It is the intention of the evil one to insinuate in the mind and heart of the person the doubt that God really loves you and also that God exists, that you have another father different from the father that has given you the biological life. Here is the doubt, the question: is there anyone above me, or I am alone in this world? If I only think that I have a biological father, I will fall back on the material realities of this world, as if they were an absolute, the only bread for the only life. This is the doubt that the evil tries to insinuate to you. Are you sure this material life is not the only life? And here is the temptation. Perhaps there is no one who is interested in you. And if there is someone up there, ask him for proof that he exists, for proof that he loves you, to show his presence and his love working miracles in your favor. God has promised to take care of his faithful. It's true. It's in Psalm 91 says, and it's quoted also in the temptation. It says, "For he commands his angels with regard to you to guard you wherever you go. With their hands they shall support you, lest you strike your foot against a stone." 91, 11, 12. God has insisted in protecting your life through his angels, and really God has placed his angels by our side, who are the mediators of his tenderness and his favors. It is here that the leap into faith in God comes in. Faith must be reasonable. Our mind must be well informed. But at a certain point, reason is not enough, and faith comes into play. The impulse of love towards the arms of love of him whom I have understood that exists and that loves me. And the person feels also loved. And this person does not ask for proof, because that request contradicts love. It is a clear manifestation of distrust in the other. I know that there is a Father above me. I have understood that he loves me, and I have no need to ask for any proof. I know that he with his angels is by my side and wants me to be happy. The temptation of going after miracles is the wrong relationship with God. It means appealing for God to do what we are called to do with the great capacities that he has made available to us. When the search for miracles enter, religion becomes superstition and magic. These are the veiled attempts of seizing superhuman forces to put them at our service. And this is not faith. Faith is reduced to prayers to saints, to obtain favors, to recourse to relics, to objects that later are not very different from amulets and talismans, miraculous waters. Okay, I do not want to despise simple faith, but it is necessary that faith be ever more authentic. That is, the certainty of feeling and knowing oneself loved, and not seeking proof of the Lord's intervention to us, to show us that He loves us well. If we underpin our relationship with God in the search for wonders, life itself will be in charge of making us doubt that God does not fulfill His promises, and the need to have these proofs is born. And who among us have not witnessed believers who are disappointed because their prayers have not been heard, and they said, what is the point of believing in God if afterwards He does not do what He is asked? If it really were a God, He would intervene with a miracle in certain situations. Why doesn't He? It is a temptation that Israel also had in the desert when faced with the vital needs of water and food that they experienced. They asked themselves, is the Lord with us or not? Exodus 17:7. This doubt, this request, is an offense to God because it doubts His love. Jesus also went through this test. He certainly wondered, why did the Father not intervene to prove I was right? Why did He let events run as if He did not exist? Why did the wicked triumph over the righteous? Why God has not intervened to unmask the falsehood of Annas and Caiaphas? And these are questions very similar to those that people of all time have always asked. Why do the wicked prosper while life is often unfair and cruel to the weak, and God does nothing? And this is the temptation. Do not trust the God who does not give proof of His love. This is the temptation. Jesus answered, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test. It is an invitation to cultivate a pure faith, a faith that has no need for proofs or miracles. Jesus has shown how joyful and sad events are lived, and also dramatic events of life, without being dominated by doubt that God is not faithful to His love. And now the third parable that puts us on guard over the temptation to relate in a wrong, dehumanizing way with those who are at our side. Let us listen. Then the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their magnificence. And he said to him, all this I shall give to you, if you will prostrate yourself and worship me. At this Jesus said to him, get away, Satan. It is written, the Lord your God shall you worship, and Him alone shall you serve. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. In the third parable, the evil presents himself as the prince of the world, as the one who has everything in his hand. And really, what is the relationship that guides the behavior among the people, among the nations in the world today? Let's try to reflect. It is not the strength of the evil that governs the world, where everyone searches instinctively for what gives comfort, just do it mentality. The rulers of the nation think in the interest of their people, and to accomplish this goal, they listen to the evil one. And what does the evil one suggest? He tells them, the world is regulated by competition. Each one seeks to dominate and to be served by others. This is the way the world works with. And now I will teach you how to beat it. Don't pay attention to anyone. Don't be moved by the needs of others. And if necessary, you must also be willing to crush those who want to be imposing on you. If you manage finances or the economy, you should think only of profit. If necessary, exploit creation, pollute, destroy, waste natural resources. This is how things move in the world. This is how the world functions. You get what you want by following these criteria, says the devil one. Jesus also received this suggestion from the evil one. He told Jesus, you can change the world, and I will teach you how to do it. Take on power. Listen to me, because otherwise you will fail. And this is the meaning of, if you prostrate to worship me. That is, if you accept my logic, my way of thinking, if you accept my orders and follow my instructions. These suggestions of the devil is not to serve, but to dominate, to compete, and not to be supportive, solidary, to be served, and not be servant of others. Devil one says, you will exercise this dominion over people and strive to prevail over others. And whenever someone is forced to kneel, to bow down in front of another, there works the logic of the evil one. How did Jesus respond to this proposal that evil made him? It is the same proposal that is made to us, because the alternative is to serve or to be served by others. Jesus said, get away, Satan. It is written, the Lord your God shall you worship, and him alone shall you serve. And Jesus did not lack qualities to emerge and seize political and religious power. And he was intelligent, lucid, brave, and also knew how to charm the crowd. He certainly would have succeeded, but with one condition, that he worshipped Satan. That is, to adapt to the principle of this world and enter into competition. And Jesus made the opposite choice. He became a servant. It is the Lamb who has begun the kingdom, together with the ones who become lambs with him and donate their life for love, as Jesus did. This is the kingdom destined to remain. This is the royal crown that will never be removed from his head. This is the life of those who are really free, free to love. I wish you all a good Sunday and a good week.